Hello, everyone. It's John Kraska with Every Library and the Every Library Institute. Thank you for being a part of this conversation today. Our ongoing series around the special issue, the second special issue of The Political Librarian, our Journal of Public Policy, Tax Policy, and Education Policy here at the Every Library Institute. We're featuring a couple of the authors from our special issue, which is focusing on the impact of the anti-DEI orders from the Trump administration on the library, archives, and museums sector. It's an important conversation from both a public policy and a personal impact space, because how are we weathering those attacks? How are we positioning ourselves for response? How are we potentially positioning our sector for some need to rebuild after this? But more importantly, what are we going to be doing over the next, say, 300 days between now, which is about 300 days since the inauguration, between now and the midterms even, when America makes a new decision about which way do we want to be going as a country. I'm very excited today to welcome Professor Bharat Mehra for a conversation about his contribution to the special issue called Coordinated DEI Political Attacks and President Trump's Executive Orders through a lens of critical theory. Professor Mehra, thank you very much for being with us today. It's a real treat to be able to meet you in this context.
Thanks for having me here. I'm so excited and honored to be part of this series.
Yes.
And I'm privileged to be part of the special issue here. Thank you.
Having you come in with, well, let me give people just a brief overview. This is not doing your CV any justice here, but the professor is Professor and Endowed Chair in Social Justice at the University of Alabama School of Library and Information Studies. He's an internationally recognized scholar in diversity, social justice, marginalized communities, and critical librarianship. He's known for community-based participatory research, particularly bridging LIS theory and social intervention into practice, and has an extensive publication record on LGBTQ+ communities, public library programming, social exclusion, equity practices, all of which the president has decided to issue numerous executive orders, either subverting, overturning, or invalidating. How is it to be a professional in the library space right now, sir?
Of course, it is extremely problematic, and I'm in the Deep South. And so in the Deep South, it's a different world, different dynamics altogether. But all around the country, we are under tremendous attacks, as we all know. That's why we are having these type of conversations in trying to find ways that we can be more assertive and more aggressive in terms of trying to dismantle the oppression and the arsenal of using this systems of democracy against us, against ways to stifle minority and underprivileged voices and opportunities and such. So I think what all that we can do, we need to keep doing it and more.
So your article in the newest issue of The Political Librarian, folks, I want to put up on the screen so that you can go track it down while you're listening with the other ear, mind you. The Political Librarian, with this special issue, wanted to bring in these conversations in a very direct way now, and to suggest to the sector, to the American public who cares about libraries and archives and museums, that we should be doing something about it. And your article, I'm going to put the title of the article up for everybody to read as well, to make sure that we're going to the right citation. But the coordinated part of the coordinated DEI political attacks in the Trump administration is where I'd like to begin a dive into the article with you, if I could, because the news reports about the DEI executive orders don't even name the number. They don't even name the item. It's like when you're trying to follow coverage about lawsuits and they don't mention that it's who versus whom, these tend to be looked at as being a little just pops, and yet your thesis in this article, which I support and agree with, is that this is a comprehensive and coordinated approach, and there's a system behind it. Can you unpack that a little bit for the folks who are watching with us today?
Definitely so, yes. I think the news media there's a tremendous disservice to glossing over the details and trying to minimize and capture the thing that would attract the most emotional. Uh, it will resonate with the public in an emotionally charged manner, but at a disservice to what it is. And so this article came about, this manuscript came about in response to trying to provide more evidence. Let us see what the vocabulary is all about with a more refined lens in order to be examining it closely, in order to then identify the nuances of messages that are getting disseminated in relation to the attacks. And then we see that it's not an isolated event. It is a whole series of from the other side consolidated attacks that are happening at every different front. But they are if you look at all of them together, you see the bigger picture, and you then realize there is a need for, as it is coordinated on the side of those who are trying to dismantle democracy, we also have to take a similar attempt in terms of coming together in recognizing the nuances and the details rather than glossing over.
Well, I have to say, I was not brought up short in a negative way, but you made me sit up straight when your approach in this article of using critical theory to look at the entire corpus of these anti-DEI executive orders, in which they're not just short stories. They're not just little articles. They're part and parcel of a comprehensive work. And using that critical theory lens to analyze it, I have to tell you, I thought to myself, you're onto something here.
And it was basically, it is common sense, right? And history, we keep repeating history.
Yes.
And falling into prey without learning any insights or lessons from the past. And so by looking at the different criteria of critical theory, which emerged, of course, as we all know, in early 20th century in response to colonialism and imperialism and the rise of fascism. And we had people who had and continue to point out the dimensions of critical theory and being able to highlight the problems that it led to, including loss of millions of lives.
Yes.
And so coming to looking at the different dimensions of critical theory rather than one attribute. In this article, I pick up 8 different attributes of critical theory and then apply those attributes to the content analysis of the executive orders to then highlight the dysfunctional rhetoric that is embedded in there and pull those out. So to me, it was common sense because we all knew this was happening, but we just did not do it in a more like a consolidated manner. We just felt that this is what's happening without solid evidence to back our feelings and our thoughts about.
Well, I mean, Professor, one man's common sense is another man's deep revelation when he engages in the work. So what questions do you feel that this sector, the library sector, the archives sector, the museum sector even, are not asking properly publicly? What are we not asking ourselves or the government in this moment?
I think you started the conversation that way. We are replicating in terms of simplification. I mean, I've criticized the concept of information literacy in one of the other articles in your journal that I wrote a while back on the 7 mantras of information wisdom. And information wisdom again means you cannot keep doing the same thing and expecting different results. And it's the same message here, that the whole concept of information literacy emerging from privileged academic colleges and universities, we continue hold on to that without seeing how it plays itself out in different disciplines. So I've called for political information literacy will look different, like health information literacy or music information literacy. But we keep putting it into the same bucket, and the 16 in 2016, the ACRL elements of information literacy that emerged again do the same thing. So what one is calling for is a more granular approach here. And here we are talking about politics and political information and political literacy. And we have to be astute. First, that's my first point there, in calling attention to these gaps, these problems. And the second dimension is about the notion of political rhetoric, that we have to dismantle the political rhetoric as we engage with our legislators and our politicians, and call attention to them when they are messing, when they are using lies, when they are giving half truths, when they are when more aggressively as librarians, I mean to say, because the news people, there is a chatter and a clutter of talk shows and all these other things that happen there, but librarians are completely missing with the actual arsenal that we have in our kitty bags.
Yes.
Information, knowledge, wisdom. We are not playing a role in being there in those platforms where we challenge the political rhetoric with evidence.
So I would like to come back to that idea around, I think you used the term dysfunctional rhetoric in the article. I would like to come back to that in a moment. I do want to talk about propaganda in a moment. But let me ask you first a little bit about the collective rather than isolationist approach, the critical analysis that you were doing. What patterns within the DEI, anti-DEI executive orders, what intentions did you identify? And also why DEI as a targeted cultural framework right now?
That is definitely, I mean, it's tied in again with the economy, as you saw from the examples of the political rhetoric that are highlighted from the different executive orders. They are all connected together, and DEI is connected together with the shaping of the economy internationally or within the country. And so there is a bigger picture, which it's like a jigsaw puzzle that President Trump has been an expert in using it for his own agenda in a way which is imbalanced. Coming to the point of dysfunctional is related with those which are going against the tenets of, if we say we are a democracy, then the actual functioning of the democracy is getting curtailed by many of these aspects of the way that the games have been played. So that's my comment in relation to part of the question that you had.
Certainly. So the idea that one of the things about censorship that to me is misunderstood often in the headlines around the censorship attacks on libraries. Of course, the underlying discrimination within censorship, the idea that it is always easier to go after a book than it is to go after a person or a group of people. And the DEI rhetoric, the anti-DEI rhetoric, is similarly positioned. It is, to my reading, of course, it's discriminatory. It's plainly discriminatory, and yet rhetorically, in that dysfunctional rhetorical environment that you're describing, it's euphemistically considered to be about justice rather than injustice. I mean, can you spin this up a little bit more for me?
Yes, and it is actually, it is again coming to that simplification. It is categorization. It's basically an information problem, the EDI issue, because it's based on black and white characters.
Yes,
we are all holistic beings in our intersectional reality, but the way that the politics and the law paints us as human beings is in these fragmented, isolated ways. And we see that even in the Civil Rights Act of 1964, where gender and race and ethnicity and national origins and everything is thrown into one bucket, and in a disservice, because the whole aspect of equality is a problematic aspect there, because we are not equal. We are all different in our own manner of our personal individualistic.
As equality being sameness as opposed
Yes,
to equality being individual.
yes, and equity versus equality there. But your laws paint these pictures of black and white aspects of within the categories that we belong to, and then that has been misused for personal gain. We saw in 2016 President Trump did a remarkable job in serving his agendas and reaching out to the rural communities because they were left out within
Yes.
all this categorization and black and white aspects of things. The aspect of economic income was missed out in these simplifications of EDI buckets and such. So I'm coming back to the EDI in a topic to recognize that the whole aspects of this has been problematic in the United States from the very beginning. And so now we are facing the musics of the unpleasant music of the flaws that were there, where it's being used left, right, and center for personal self-serving agendas.
You bring up something that is underappreciated, I believe, on the left, the progressives, and I don't think that it's appreciated very well in the library community. Honestly, is the idea that this is not only a race conversation; it's a class conversation, and the race class narrative has to be something that we understand because division between the classes is an easy wedge,
Yes.
and I don't think that we get out of a politically toxic environment or an environment where propaganda rules the day without confronting what you've just described as the race class narrative.
And what about the patriarchy narrative? You are talking about non-gender conforming,
Yes.
where all of them are getting worked up because they are scared that their little children are going to challenge the whole male superiority and females lower and all that stuff that connects with it. So it is all these threads which are part of the human condition and human existence. And the laws have been able to problematically, successfully demarcate it into these little packets through which they should be addressing elements of fairness and justice and all that. How can you do that when you're doing it in a fragmented way about an individual person?
So the library role in all of this, the library, archives, and museums role in it. I mean, the conversations are they tend to be either or that I've been seeing. It's either a conversation about history, whose history, how do we curate, how do we collect, or it's about how do we serve everyone of all Americans. How do we serve all Americans? Coming to the front door. And the library community does not seem to be confronting the propaganda strategically, coming at them.
Yeah, they have been always passive First of all, they've been followers and then passive followers. And so it was a remarkable, it should not have been remarkable when we had the president of ALA talk about lesbian and some of the elements. But because the profession had not done that for its whole existence, it became like a shock for the profession and for externals, people who are perceiving the profession to be. And so that's the same matter here, that we have to be more aggressive and proactive in questioning and being key players in these decision-making relationships with news media, relationship with legislators, in a way for them to break the historical narrative about libraries that has been developed and built. By ourselves, we have also built it. So we are, in some ways, have to take ownership of our dysfunctional elements in contributing towards the picture of as passive bystanders and whatnot, in order to, and it's going to take several decades because it cannot happen right away when we have just emerged in being able to be more vocal in calling attention to the gaps that we have encountered for centuries.
Yes.
So it can't happen in the right away. But so these are these several, we'll be facing these several decades of, and again, within the emerging populism and political scenarios that were also predicted in the past,
Yes.
that have also been predicted as
Well,
well.
I do want to check in with you about that, because one of the more chilling elements of your article, and now let me put the article name back on the screen for people so they can search it appropriately, and then I'll put back up the link as well when that comes down. But one of the things you talked about in the article is the parallels. If we are in a democratic decline, if our republic is becoming so disrupted that the questions about truth are more than philosophical. You talk about the parallels between political populism today and in pre-war Germany, the Weimar Republic. The similarities that you see, I don't disagree with, but why should the library industry be paying attention, and how should public knowledge institutions play a role at this point?
Exactly. And so how they should be going about is calling attention to the political rhetoric that emerges. In addition, we have the news media doing that, but it's doing that in a very in a way that confuses everybody, left, right, and center, in little ways, and the public just replicates the particular talk show that they listen to. They are just resonating with that one. And again, it's a dysfunction of the two-party system, as we know. And so I think one of the elements of us as librarians and institutions of the academy is to not fall for where the master is whipping us, we follow with it. We have to also resist it in some ways and continue kind of playing that role of articulating what, how, and why the resistance is actually beneficial to them. And that's where I think part of it might be.
Right now, in your home state of Alabama, in Tennessee, our neighbors in Tennessee. I'm in Illinois myself.
Yes.
In Wyoming, Montana, New Hampshire, for that matter, there are legislative and regulatory frameworks in those states that are highly discriminatory, and they're forcing the library community to discriminate. And it's not just a violation of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. It is institutionalization of a perspective on people under the guise of this political rhetoric, and they are so euphemistic. They don't name what they're actually trying to name, because they know if they are that bold about naming it, they will be seen for what they are. And Americans in their hearts are very different than Americans in their practice. And I hope that the library community can find some courage from essays like yours and stories and articles like yours to have that honest conversation. Because unless we're pursuing that now, I'm not sure we're going to be able to do in 3, 5, 7, 10 years.
Yeah, and it's scary all the more because it's not too far away where we've said the evidence here shows it, that we've been sleeping all these years and we are still sleeping in not knowing. To us all, to me it seems literal that it's there, because it's there. I mean, the executive, but you have the legislature filling up the judiciary with their own people, and so we have a breakdown of the whole three branch government way of running. And I think it's our librarians and who should be drawing attention to how it is breaking down in each of the different states in different ways. But it is I completely agree that preaching about it is much easier than actual practice of it. And I'm going to give you an instance. You all might wonder, my second author of this article chose to become an anonymous author.
Yes.
Because it was one of our students, a doctoral student who had helped in collecting some of the data in the executive orders and compiling them together. And the person is from one of the Appalachian states. And so they ended up moving in with their family members. And even though their conversations led to a more refined understanding of each other, however, they felt threatened that as an emerging scholar, they don't want to put their name out there in relation to a topic like that. And so is this the day and age where, I mean, and this is the country to be, where something like that happens? It is traumatic
Yes,
that
sir.
someone thinks that way and is facing such circumstances and conditions in their safe environments of their home in order to be stifled and become invisible in the way. So if that's happening there, it is happening everywhere. And so, like I said, it is easy to talk about it, but it's difficult to practice it. But only when we practice it, it's going to hurt us. But we have to practice it. Otherwise there is calamity, as we've seen from the conclusion in the article.
Professor Mehra, thank you very much for bringing up your co-author. And one of the reasons here at Every Library Institute we provide for anonymous submissions is particularly because it is called the Political Librarian. And some places are fraught, but right now all of America seems to be. And I'm very glad we could provide that to your colleague. And for the record, folks, I don't know who that is. I'm the executive director of the organization, and it doesn't really matter to me. Our editorial space reserves that dignity of an anonymous submission on purpose. So, well, Professor, we have come to the end of our time today, and I really would like to make sure that that folks have a chance to connect with you in this article, Coordinated DEI, Political Attacks, and President Trump's Executive Orders Through the Lens of Critical Theory. The deconstruction that you're helping people to think through together is, I think, the psychological agitation that we need, because unless we begin those processes with that critical theory framework, we are very willing to be consumers rather than citizens.
Yes, thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity, and I hope the message gets across. And of course, after hearing, please, the audience can feel free to reach out to me, and we can talk more.
That's fantastic. And folks, thank you again, Professor. And folks, this is part of a series this winter spring on the special issue, the 2025 special issue of the Political Librarian, Mondays, 1 o'clock Eastern, and on demand anytime. As soon as this broadcast is over, in fact, Every Library on Facebook, Every Library on YouTube, you can watch it, you can share it, you can start thinking it through out loud together immediately thereafter. So thank you for being with me today, Professor. It was a real pleasure to be able to hang out with you.
Likewise. Thank you.
Very good. I'm going to put up the card, and I'm going to hit end. Don't disappear, though.